Thank you everybody for coming to join us at the Triton community meetup. And we have some interesting topics for today's meetup. Got, I think, 3 topics off the top. And if folks have more topics, please put them in the chat, and then you will make sure that we get recognized. So the first topic that we have today, Jianhui from Intel. And Jianhui, are you here?
Yes, I'm here, yes.
Oh, excellent. I'll let you ask this question yourself because you're so good at phrasing it. So I'm thinking that Jianhui has a question that you'd like to ask the folks who maintain Triton, a particular question about like a feature that he thinks might be disappearing in the very near future. So Jianhui, hey, ask your question.
Yeah, so basically we are closely tracking what the Triton's programming model. We are glad to see that Triton tends to use the generic tensor descriptor instead of the earlier on like specific TMA thing, and get rid of experimental prefix things like that. And then internally, right now we are still relying on the earlier block pointer programming model. It would take us a few time period to transit to this tensor descriptor. So we wonder what is a timeline.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Now, are you presenting anything?
No, it's just a question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just a question.
Yeah, it's just a question. So we wonder the timeline for Triton to deprecate the block pointer, because there was a saying on that. And that's one question. The other part is that we look at the code example and also find that the tensor descriptor has 2 flavors. Still have 2 flavors. We would like to keep 1 flavor. The one is a created tensor descriptor from the host. The other is created from the device. We would understand better like why we keep this 2 flavor. And why not just keep the device side one, because that looks like more cleaner interface. So that's the basic question.
Great question, Jianhui. So anybody out there who'd like to answer this question?
So my understanding is that you are questioning about why we keep 2 tensor descriptors, one on the host side and the other on the device side. Is that a question? And which one would you like to keep?
Yes, that's one.
You want to keep the host side or the device side?
We from our side, we don't have the issue that the tensor descriptor has to be in global memory. So we don't have to do that at all. So that we're also aware that there's issues when you have a tensor descriptor created in the memory. You need to have those memory consistent issues to deal with. We basically we don't have to take that thing at all. So we rather to have a tensor descriptor inside the device.
So usually we found like when you have tensor descriptor, it's specifically on NVIDIA issues. If you have it on the host, you are kind of getting faster speed. But we have the descriptor API on the device, particularly because we need to sometimes update the descriptor in the kernel instead of on the device.
Mm-hmm.
So we still want to provide 2 kinds of APIs.
Yeah, I think it's a trade-off between whether you get the best performance versus make stick to like ease of program. I think from if you think long term of a Triton programming model, restricting the programmability to less choices, and then as a backend, we like to see that happen because we don't have to enable all kinds of different programming models. Yeah, it actually will help Triton be bit more supported, I believe, because if you chase down that a little bit of performance, and there's other alternative way to get more performance, and it's just more like philosophical thinking.
Well, I think from your perspective, is it a problem if you only support device-side descriptor encryption and update?
We don't have that. Well, yeah, we like to see
Okay.
that. Yeah.
I think
And
for
also,
now, still
I
need to keep
want
two APIs. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Karen.
I was wondering what other vendors in this community see how this thing,
I think the best way to validate what I was saying is to try out the tutorial, which is 09 persistent method or something, which uses tensor descriptor in various ways, and it indeed shows different performance.
So your position in OpenAI would be to officially support both the tensor descriptor with the device-side API, where you can do a make tensor descriptor on the device, as well as allocating on the OS side. Is that what is that
Yes.
your plan? Okay.
Yes.
And in terms of block pointers, you foresee removing support for block pointer in favor of the tensor descriptor?
Yeah, so I propose to completely take it out from Triton and use tensor descriptor instead. I don't see any feature cannot be implemented by tensor descriptor.
Yeah, so we have some experience to share. Yeah, so I took the a gem kernel written with block pointers, and then I rewrote it using tensor descriptors on the device, and internally we're able to essentially translate the tensor descriptor into a block pointer API, and it works. So do that. Because the tensor descriptor doesn't have the offset information, the offset information are on the load. So we go and look at the load and the tensor descriptor associated with that load, and then we can materialize and make block pointer with the information that we need. So that would work pretty well interprocedurally, because we can find the definition of the make tensor descriptor pointer in the same function. Intraprocedurally, that's a little bit more difficult, because your definition for the block pointer for the tensor descriptor may be in the caller and the load in the callee.
Yeah, I understand. Right now, the calling convention is a bit confusing if you use no inline functions.
If you don't, yeah, so Triton by default inline aggressively. So if the callee is not inline, that they require interprocedural analysis. But nevertheless, it should be possible to do. And that was just an experiment, because internally we are already using block pointers, so it's a quick way to, support partially the tensor descriptor API on the device without to fully support it as first-class citizen. But that's just a transition strategy.
I think we have a question from Cigar.
We're welcome to continue talking if you want, but
Cigar?
yeah.
Cigar's hand's raised. Okay, go ahead, Cigar.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. So, I don't want to interrupt. I was just, you mentioned that you're asking we don't really see a way to use you don't really see block pointer usage that the tensor descriptor doesn't cover, right? So we're actually heavy users of the block pointer API. And in fact, we actually have a wrapper on the both APIs, right? So we actually have a wrapper function that can create either a block pointer or a tensor descriptor. What it actually does is that the block pointer API is actually kind of a superset of a tensor descriptor, in the sense that you can, if you happen to know the load information, the offsets beforehand, we just carry it around in a tuple, and then when you actually do the load, then you can kind of just apply. You can just apply it there. But there are actually some differences that we can't use the tensor descriptor for. So for currently, at least, there are limitations on kind of for example, the least significant stride has to be 1, and also each of the other strides have to have a dimension of 16, for example, right? So we have use cases. Obviously, none of our performance sensitive stuff is using it, right? but like we would obviously, like, we have small writes that we do actually use block pointers for that are not currently supported by TMA. So
I think the ultimate point is not to just lower descriptor to TMA or whatever only hardware support. We want an intermediate path that translate the tensor descriptor description into something similar to what we have in block pointer, which could support like general tensor movements.
and then if it is, I guess, TMA compatible, then you would actually lower it to TMA rather than
Yes,
a
indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to Peter a long time ago, but I guess he doesn't have time to focus on this stuff. Maybe it will take him a week or two, but he just cannot find time to work on this.
We at least have, like, we don't really mind, I guess, which API it is, because we don't have a backend, obviously, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I
as
feel
long
like
as-
it's kind of bothering me if we keep two kind of similar APIs. Would probably bother new users.
So, if I may ask, what is your transition plan? I mean, there may be people that use that still use make block pointer API, right? The block pointer API. No, I'm not talking about Intel in general, because that was not fully supported, but it's there. And so to give time to move to people that depend on that API to move to the tensor descriptor, what's the transition plan? Like, what's the timeline?
We haven't discussed that yet, so I cannot give you an answer, but I can trigger discussion internally and let you know.
That's good, because I think that goes back to what Jianhui was going to ask in the very beginning also, which was the idea of when are they actually going to transition over, and like how long will it be supported, right, Jianhui?
Yeah. We need some like grace period for the transition.
Yeah.
I have follow-up questions. Karen, you mentioned that there's a performance difference, and then we can find it in this tutorial 09 persistent MATML. Is it so?
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Really?
Yeah. Can you point?
I do see it. Isn't it here already? TMA.
Or maybe
I think it's here.
I see the program model like both, but where's the data? Like how much difference?
How much difference?
If it makes sense, you can post that offline, or like return directly, and then like we can take that offline.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions though that anybody else has with regards to like the using the block pointers, or like the deprecation? Otherwise, I think Karen's going to start a discussion. It sounds like we'll find out like when that transition will occur. If that's okay, then we'll head off to the second one, unless you want to say something else, Karen?
No, not really.
Okay, so we'll head off to our second topic. I think we have Sayce online. So Sayce is from IBM. He's got a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is like discussing maybe performance testing infrastructure for Triton and whether or not we can actually publish some of those numbers to the outside world. So Sayce, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you right now.
Good. I'm actually from Googleville, but I appreciate
I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries. I work with the Triton team here, including Kai Waring and Goran Florens, and all of you have probably come across them in various formats. Yes, to Bill's point, just curious to hear if the community has any near-term plans for setting up Triton benchmarking on some of NVIDIA's latest and greatest hardware. It's something I think we all have a lot of great interest in. And I know there was some discussion around doing this through the PyTorch Foundation and maybe Torchbench. And I would say there's some pros and cons to that. So just generally curious to hear what the industry or the community sentiment is here.
And feel free to raise your hands if you want to speak.
No, just scratching.
You can still say something, Cece. Go ahead, Cece. So this is Cece from Meta.
Yeah, so I think I can give an update on our side. We've had discussions with NVIDIA about running the Triton bench on B200 on a daily basis, and probably takes 10 minutes to run. And the goal is to track the performance of the B200. So I talked to NVIDIA to ask them to provide the hardware because we don't have the hardware. And NVIDIA suggested that we work with OpenAI because OpenAI has the hardware. And so I've been in a three-way conversation with Phil and Jason from NVIDIA about this. And I think we now do have hardware from OpenAI. There are some nodes on Azure. And we need some CI support, which Jason from NVIDIA is looking to. So I think the first step is to get the Triton bench running. If we can get that up and running, to have the infra running, have the CI running. So in the proposal we put together, we did open the door for additional benchmark that will be beneficial for the community as the next step. So we would be interested to hear from anybody who wants to be part of this.
Yeah, just to add on to that, Sayce, thanks for the summary. I believe the help that OpenAI and Phil are looking for is on the DevOps infra side of folks to manage these, CI runners, SSH access, these kinds of things. Obviously, the kind of complexities and security of inter-organization, access to shared machines is complex, and that's actually why I suggested we look to the PyTorch Foundation, because they've already solved these problems, and we've had a lot of experience of donating hardware to the PyTorch Foundation, and they have quite extensive benchmarking and CI machinery there at broad scale, and so that's why my hope was to leverage that. But it does seem like it's possible for us to leverage the existing GB200 runner that's in Triton CI today and add benchmarks to that both on a MR or PR and nightly basis. But we just need to find some way to make this inter-organizational kind of co-ownership or management work out on the DevOps side. So if folks have experience doing that from your orgs, then you reach out, Sayce, we should definitely loop you in as well.
Just have a quick question on that. So you mentioned that you want to run Torch Bench as a CI. Do you want to run it on inside the Triton main project or in another project?
It's
I think,
experiment, right?
Yeah, actually, we have two places that we're possibly thinking of running it. One of the places is using Triton experimental. Using Facebook experimental Triton, which is the repo that we have right now, where we have a lot of our warp specialization stuff being tested, and seeing whether we can host it there. I think we have one other location too, which it just kind of escapes me off the top of my head. At least inside of Meta, that's what at least we're thinking initially. There's like Sayce was talking about. There is the talk of actually doing some work with the PyTorch repository also. And I think even with regards to both of them too, Sayce gave you an update on the GB200s and the B200s, but we're also looking at AMDs, the MI300.
Yeah, so that's still early, but we will be focused more of the work on the MI350 soon. So I asked, in preparation for that, we should start thinking about it.
Okay.
I thought Xu Zhao, who's the maintainer of Triton Bench, he's already running all sorts of benchmarks and performance regression tests, right?
That's correct, but they're not being exposed to the outside world. So we want to actually have the machines.
Oh, okay. Now I get it. So all of these are just internally only, right?
Yeah, okay. Internal only. All right.
Yeah, I have a question to actual Jason. Jason, you mentioned that there's a dashboard machinery and infrastructure that can be used for publishing data. So we already have public CI on Intel backend. Can we leverage that on the PyTorch side to show our data?
Sorry, so I guess to clarify, we have the existing Triton CI that OpenAI maintains and runs, and then there's PyTorch infrastructure, which does both CI and performance testing. Which were you referring to?
We are not in Treat backends. We are out of the Treat backend, so we have our own CI and our own repository. I'm less interested in the CI, more interested in the dashboard, like where the dashboard is located, and can we contribute data to that dashboard?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know PyTorch Foundation has a bunch of dashboards, but yeah, I don't know of any dashboards publicly for the Triton upstream project. So that has to be net new as well.
Mm-hmm.
So please
So
keep
also-
us informed on that if you can.
Okay.
Also, one thing to add, Jason, the DevOps support from the PyTorch Foundation, that is not up and running, right? I think that's the one we looked at originally, but it's not up and running yet, and it seems like it's probably months out. That's where we're looking at this other option. I just wanted to add some color there.
So you're talking about B200 specifically?
Yeah, for B200 specifically.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks.
Okay. Actually, one question I have for you, Jason, regarding the B200s, where are they actually being hosted? Where are they physically located? I'm curious whether or not is it hosted through cloud someplace, or is it something that's on-prem in NVIDIA? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, my understanding for PyTorch Foundation is these are all cloud instances that have credits either donated or paid for by various members of the PyTorch Foundation, or I think it's the PyTorch Foundation itself. So probably a blend of the clouds, the top in whatever those are, and then in terms of the CI for Triton, that'd be a question for OpenAI or Karen here.
Sorry, I missed the context. What's the question?
The CI runners that for upstream Triton repository. Bill's question was, where are those hosted? Are those cloud or on-prem?
Yeah, some of them are on Azure, and I think the Blackwell one is the in-house server.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, is in terms of like, I think Jason was bringing up all sorts of ideas about like talking about like SSHing into them and things like that. If it's on-prem, then it might be a little bit more difficult. You might have more hoops to jump through versus like if it's on cloud. Cloud, we might be able to do something more with like ECLs and things like that to be able, like have better access, easier access to it. So yeah, just kind of curious in the back of my head.
I think we'd love to see if there are more compute resources, which could definitely accelerate the CI. Currently, we only have one node per type of test.
Wow. Oh, okay. I don't know, Jason, do you have anything over there in NVIDIA where you actually have like a locally hosted cloud that you wouldn't mind giving access to?
Yeah, the difficulty is local resources are challenging from a security perspective. So
All right.
that's why we, the PyTorch, foundation exists to make these kinds of things easier for us to donate resources. Yeah, again, that's the kind of backstory there.
Yeah, so we let some, if PyTorch Foundation can actually take care of it, that sounds like it's a lot. It sounds like it's a very reasonable way to actually do that.
Is there any way we can find out what's the progress on the PyTorch Foundation in getting the DevOps stuff running? It seems like we
would have to talk
don't
about that.
know.
I think we'd have to do that internally.
Okay.
Well, we don't know. So it was
Sounds
actually
like everyone just like, there's this thing, but we don't know what's going on. So let's just assume it's months out. But
I think
maybe
we should go look into that.
Okay.
Okay. We mean you. But
Yes.
Yes, we,
Yes,
the royal we,
I will.
us, we're all looking at it. Okay, folks, are there any other questions regarding, are people actually interested in like seeing like repeatable metrics or repeatable performance, being able to see that in a publicly accessible dashboard? Just kind of curious what the community thinks. Eric, what do you guys think?
I'm curious, not for performance metrics, but what like regression testing do we have for this kind of thing?
Good question.
So we've noticed in some of like we pull Triton main every few days, right? And we've noticed some performance regressions go in, right? We haven't fixed any of them because often they get fixed again, or we just work around them, right? Are people typically running things where they find either performance regressions, or they're like even just like looking for how their code is performing?
Yeah, here at Intel, we have internal dashboard and all the metrics and data tracking and databases, etc. So we just can donate that data, publish that data to whatever dashboard will be up and running. So we don't have problem there.
Okay.
But we don't see,
Go ahead.
on our Intel dashboards, we don't usually see regressions coming from
Meta, yes.
from OpenAI. We are usually a week behind main, but we don't usually see regressions from OpenAI. I know that in PyTorch they sometimes see regressions, but that's partially because they're at like a 6-month lag from OpenAI main.
One question for Sayce, since you brought this up, I know that Google with XLA has done quite a bit of this in the public. So curious if y'all are looking to help set this up, facilitate this for Triton as well?
Yes, I think we'd be open to talking through what that would look like from a people or resourcing model. I couldn't tell you right now exactly what that commitment would be, but I think if we know what our shared community goal is, then we can work backwards from that and figure out where our teams could help and contribute.
Yeah, to Karen's point earlier, I think Nightly's doing something like Triton Bench, broader tests, and then some small per PR tests, number of cycles for each runner. That would be a big step forward because we've also seen regressions and in our own internal perf testing and have to track these down ourselves. So.
Oh, I was also going to say, I think Cece's talked to Phil as part of figuring out what type of performance, which kernels we would actually like to do performance testing on. And I think, what do you remember?
I think he's, I don't think that's all of it, but he mentioned Llama 4 and MOE model. So we should look at what operators are actually in that model. Mm-hmm. But I think with all these conversations we're having here, seems like people are interested in community testing performance. We should also get into details like which kernels and operators we're interested in.
Mm-hmm. I think you also mentioned something too, is that they don't want to have every kernel be a blocker.
Right.
Not everything should be a blocker to actually doing releases. And I think that's another one too, as part of the community, to actually come upon an idea what are the kernels that we really do care about in terms of the ones that should actually block releases.
Yeah, and Phil did say he does want some of them to be blocker. Because I also said we don't have to block anything. He said, no, I want to block some stuff.
Alexander?
Yeah, so it sounds like there are 2 threads here. So one is around this idea of common benchmark infrastructure, which I'm at Intel, so our backend's not in tree, but I think we would be very interested in what benchmarks are considered relevant. Mm-hmm. I know Phil's been checking in benchmarks, and if there's things that, if there's ways we can participate here, I'm kind of speaking for ARIG, but I think we would be open to participating and bringing those benchmarks, into our backend and so on and so forth, and to combine with the benchmarks we already run. And then the second thread is on the subject of the idea of better or improving regression testing in the Triton CI. Mm-hmm. We had looked at this from again, we're not seeing regressions from main, but we're also not using a lot of the functionality around warp shuffling. There's been a bunch of check-ins around that. We're not using that functionality, so we wouldn't see those. We'd be less likely to see regressions. But we had looked at things like just being able to detect that a pull request might be affecting generated code in some unusual way by comparing TTIR, TTGIR, even LVMIR. Now NVIDIA, of course, you can do PTX. Now you don't want to our struggle there was we didn't want to just write all the TTTIR, all the tests or tutorials or something into some database, because we'd be constantly updating that database, be a pain. But I think we'd be interested in collaborating on a project to do that kind of testing where you're looking at not just like the functional output or having like a lit test, but if you change one section of the compiler, what sort of, how does that change affect like the benchmark kernels themselves and the various generated code layers? And of course, you can measure things like instructions in a loop or cycles or things like Jason was mentioning. So I guess the question there is that what people are thinking, and is there any interest in informing some kind of, or is there any need for additional people to work on that?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, one thing, maybe, yeah, for instance type testing, agreed, you don't want to kind of go full bore right away, but maybe the first step is observability of, okay, this PR is, changing this much TTGIR and these this many tests, so you get a sense of the distribution just for visibility, and then that could flag you into, wait a second, I didn't expect this to kind of hit that test there, and to give, start building people's intuition before we figure out a way to kind of gate code or have other instrumentation on top. But that, just throwing that idea out, I think I've seen that in other communities, but yeah.
Yeah, that was the idea, is that it wouldn't be like a GitHub red or green thing. It would just be like a yellow, or even try and we were thinking about trying to duplicate what the PyTorch bot does with the benchmark CI hub post that says, hey, these tests are flaky and stuff like that. I to be honest, we had an intern looking at this because we had many other competing priorities, and then that person left, so it didn't get too much traction. But I think it would be really useful, because a lot of times you change, like the hardest bugs to find are the ones where it's not an intended consequence, and especially for benchmark kernels. Like, I think this goes hand in hand with establishing a wider corpus of benchmarks. Now you have, if you have the kernels or the benchmark checked into the repo, like there are lots of different ways to generate some truth IR and then compare it as part of CI. If we wanted to work on this, is there somebody, because I don't want to do a bunch of work that's duplicative or not relevant to upstream, is there somebody who'd be interested in chatting some more about it?
I'm certain you might find somebody out there, Alexander. Maybe if you want, possibly raise it as one of the questions, like in the in Slack, and maybe we can actually get somebody. We can find more people who might be interested, or they'll be able to point you around. Not everybody comes to this. I'm thinking that if we can, we'll see if we can point people to you.
Sure.
Okay, excellent. All right. If there are no other questions, then thanks very much, Sayce and Sayce, for actually bringing this up. Actually, Sayce for bringing this up, Sayce for actually chiming in. The next person that we have over here is, I think we have Adnan. Adnan, are you around? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent, Adnan. So I'll let you do your little presentation. Adnan is from Meta also, and he's got some questions to ask folks about, like Triton Developers Summit.
Yeah, so I can't share screen over here, Bill. Will you be able to share the deck, or?
Oh, let me just give it a try.
I thought I can talk over it. So just to give people context, my colleague Elena Mitra and I, we were responsible for the technical program of the Triton conference last year. Actually, I know several of you were there, and 3 speakers actually are present in the audience over here. Again, so when we set up the program, we made it a very developer-focused conference. We had tutorials on MLIR and on profiling. Karen gave the profiling tutorial, a couple of keynotes. Then we had shorter talks on closed-end backends, and then we had longer talks on OSS projects such as pipelining persistent kernels, the Intel Triton efforts, AMD, also CPU work. There was a panel on heterogeneous hardware at Meta, and then we also presented complements to Triton, such as Evo and Mosaic. I think the conference went quite well. We organized it at very short notice, but it all went smoothly execution-wise. We had over 500 people. In fact, we had to cap things at that point. So next year, well, actually, no, this year, Microsoft will be responsible for the conference, but we wanted to give them some feedback on ways that we think the conference can improve. I had a few ideas myself, but before I try to bias you guys, maybe I'll just throw the floor open for any suggestions from what people would like to see and what they think didn't work.
Adnan, you're a presenter, so you can present.
Okay, so let me just thank you. Let me just share.
Thanks, Greg.
Screen window tab, Triton. Yeah.
And while
Sure.
I'm not doing that, Sayce, do you have a question?
So I'm not sure if I can't see myself.
Oh yeah,
no,
we can see it. We can see it now, Adnan. It's a big Gmail.
Yeah. Oh, are you seeing Gmail? Okay. All right. Let me go back and change the share then. Stop sharing. Share. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. I think. Sorry. Let me just move this over here. Okay, actually, I'm not able to get the share working, so maybe I won't spend more time on that. And I'll just say that in terms of tutorials, I was thinking it would be nice not to be just so purely like developer focused, and maybe having something for Triton users. So, for example, some of the patterns and anti-patterns and writing Triton code. Maybe we've been doing there's been some nice work that's been coming out from a couple of groups on kernel profiling. I thought that would be a nice topic. And I also thought instead of having like a panel of Triton developers, it would be nice to have a panel of Triton customers. So again, if you have guys have ideas on prototypical sort of customers, we can show off both power users and noobs. That would be nice. So those are some of the thoughts. So I just wanted to get your feedback on what you think you'd like to see, and you can reach out offline or through Slack. So that's what I wanted to bring your attention to.
So just raise your hand if you'd like to give some ideas to Adnan. Oh, Karen.
Yeah, so there's one interesting perspective maybe you guys probably didn't pay attention to, is that I did notice a lot of wider usage of Triton in the academic community and especially in scientific domains. I was in a meeting with some physicists who were saying that they are using Triton in their workloads in combination with torch.compile and flex attention. So I wonder if we are able to reach out to the community and ask them to present how they use Triton in their real applications.
Okay, yeah, like a focus group of people, not just from machine learning, but also from broader HPC. Yeah, that'll be great. I think I'll reach out to you separately, Karen, to maybe get some of those contacts. Jason?
Yeah, one thing I really loved in the conference last year was the Evo and Mosaic talks, right? Just really being open with, here are other approaches, and we're not afraid to share ideas, or we're actually embracing sharing ideas. In the same vein, I think Cutlass DSL might be a good thing to talk through and show people as another complementary tool that we can learn from, and users can
benefit. In fact, you're
from.
not seeing my slides, but actually I have them right there. So I'm glad that you volunteered. That is volunteering, so I'll pass that on. So yeah.
Karen?
Hello?
Yep.
I think Karen has a old hand. So.
Oh, I didn't put my hand down. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I don't want to monopolize the presentation. So please, I'll share the slides on the Slack, and then please feel free to give any out-of-the-box kind of suggestions you may have, and please be candid with feedback. We think we did a good job, but maybe there was some stuff that you felt sucked, right?
Anna, I do have a question. Do we have like proposal process for the Triton conference, like we do for PyTorch?
So last time it was done at very short notice. I want to say like 10 weeks was all we were given. So we didn't actually have a chance for an RFC, which we would have in a traditional conference. So we just informally polled people across like the Triton community for suggestions, and then we reached out to a few people. There were a couple of proposals that didn't make the cut, but it was done just directly. And that's one thing we'd like to change this time. We'd like to have a more formal RFP. And it was just basically me, Alina, and Phil last time who decided what made the what would be most exciting. What would be nice to have a program committee. Again, all this I should stress. Like this time, we will not be organizing it. Microsoft will, but we promise to give them inputs into like the process. So.
All right. Oh no, but thanks very much.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think the plan is to co-locate Triton with the PyTorch conference this time.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's a good hint for people also, because then if you're booking tickets for PyTorch, you can at least get the same. You can get the tickets and you can get like the hotel reservation at the same time. Oh, and I guess, did you mention another thing? I don't know if there's any from Microsoft over here, but did you say they were also thinking about actually co-locating also, not just simply co-hosting at the same time, but also like putting it also in San Francisco? Is that the idea?
Yeah, at the Moscone Center, I think. Again, none of this is set in stone because of budget approval and things like that Microsoft has to go through. But yeah, last time when we sponsored it, we underwrote all the costs. It was free. I believe that's the plan going forward. But again, Microsoft has a I think more complex approval process than we had to go through at Meta. So.
Okay. Did you hear anything from them about like what their time frame is for actually like having some of these details like ironed out in terms of when they're planning actually, or did they say anything? I was just kind of curious if they mentioned anything more about like what their plans were.
No, but I think maybe this will be a good forcing function if we put it out on the Slack and then start giving them feedback. So.
Yeah, because like if they're looking for volunteers also for people to actually like to help out with the conference, that would be a bad thing to actually get them lined up now and then. Okay, folks, looking around the room right now, actually on the screen, are there other things that people would like to bring up that you weren't allowed to, like, you didn't get a chance to actually message me and actually get on the topics agenda? Are there any other topics that people have? Raise your hand. Otherwise, we probably will end up the session right about now or something like that. I want to thank Areg also for like arranging this meeting for us, because once again, I don't have access to Microsoft Meeting, and it's a really great app when you learn how to use it, folks. Okay, and we will see you all again, I think, in a month or a month and a half, something like that. 2 months? Is it 2 months, Areg, or 1 month? In 2 months. We will all see you again in 2 months. So please come up with a lot of really good questions to ask our wonderful, wonderful participants. And thank you also again for actually participating in Triton and making it a great experience, because without you folks actually doing all the development work, we would not have Triton. So anyway, thanks again, and we will see you all in 2 months.